My parents want me to die so my sister can go to college. When I was 7, my sister Delaney made a competitive dance company, and my parents rented a banquet hall for 40 relatives, with a chocolate fountain and a photographer. When I won the citywide art competition the same spring, nobody came, and I carried my framed painting home on 2 buses in the cold because there was no one to call for a ride. That single afternoon was the whole shape of my childhood. Delaney was the baby they'd prayed for, the one they spent 6 years and 3 miscarriages trying to have. I came 2 years later, unplanned, the kid who showed up after they already had the child they wanted. She got a nursery with a mural of dancers and a rocking chair that cost more than our car. I got a mattress on a metal frame and blankets that used to be hers. Mom kept every recital program and costume in labeled bins in the attic. My drawings went in the recycling. By the time I was 9, I'd stopped expecting anyone to show up for anything. I packed my own lunches, washed my own clothes, walked myself to school. Delaney got driven, even when we were headed to the same building. Teachers told me how mature I was. The truth was I never had a choice. The part that wore me down most was how they lied about it to my face. "We love you both the same," Mom would say, from the front row of another one of Delaney's showcases, having missed every one of my art shows all year. When I was 16, I got into a pre-college summer intensive at a real art school, the kind of thing that could change the direction of a whole life. Mom skimmed the letter and said that's nice, but Delaney has a competition that weekend, so there's no one to drive you. So I got a job and started saving every dollar for college because I already knew they'd never spend a cent on mine. Delaney had a $38,000 college fund that Mom brought up at every holiday. When relatives asked what my plan was, she'd wave a hand and say I was the resourceful one. I'd figure it out. Then, the winter I was 17, my body started falling apart. Bruises from nothing. A tiredness so heavy I could barely lift my arms by the end of a shift. Then I collapsed at work and woke up in a hospital bed. And the test came back as acute leukemia. Far enough along the doctors couldn't understand how I'd been standing at all. And for the first time in my whole life, my parents looked at me like I was something worth looking at. Mom cried real tears. She held my hand through the first rounds of chemo, slept sitting up in the vinyl chair by my bed. Dad took days off work, which he'd never once done for anything of mine. They brought balloons and stuffed animals and cards, every soft thing I'd wanted as a small kid and never gotten. For 3 months, I had the parents I'd spent 17 years waiting for, and the treatment worked. My counts climbed back. The doctor said if we finished the full course, I had a real shot. Then Delaney got into Juilliard. The next afternoon, Mom sat down on the edge of my hospital bed with a careful, sorry look I'd learned not to trust years ago. "Honey," she said, "we need to talk about the cost of your treatment." She started in about how insurance only covered so much, and how with Delaney's tuition coming up, they had to make hard choices. And then she told me that after this round, they were going to stop paying for my chemo. That Delaney's education was a real investment in a future, while my treatment was just delaying something that was going to happen anyway. She actually used the word selfish. About me not wanting to die of cancer so her favorite could go to a dance school. "We'll keep you comfortable," she said, like she was offering me a gift. "But Juilliard only takes you once. Your cancer will probably just come back anyway." I looked at the woman who had held my hand through chemo just long enough to feel like she'd done her part. And I understood that now that Delaney needed something, I was disposable again. Worse than forgotten. Actually being handed over. She was choosing my sister's college years over whether I got to have any years at all, and she wanted me to nod along like it made sense. But I was not going to lie there and let it happen. The second Mom left the room, I grabbed my phone, hand shaking so hard I could barely unlock it, and I typed medical emancipation for minors into the search bar, and I started reading. There were cases, real ones. Teenagers who had gone to court over their own medical care when their parents refused it. Kids who had actually won. So I was going to be the one who fought. Click here to watch part 2 of the story.